it's like a Sisyphusian effort. You can't see the mountain. You just have to see the step in front of you. And in the step in front of you, you're going to be whatever it is you're going to be, the best that you can be in that, as cheesy as that sounds, in just that one moment. And then if you string a number of those moments together, maybe you have an hour where you are present with your children or present at work.
You're listening to The Other 50%, or Her Story of Hollywood. This is where we talk to women at the top of their game in entertainment and find out what it took to get there, what their experience is at the top. In this episode, I got to speak with Nikki Toscano. She's a writer, producer, credits such as Shades of Blue, State of Affairs, Revenge. You know her work. And now you're going to get to know her. I'm Julie Harris Walker. Now here's Nikki. And you are a writer and producer?
Yes.
Are you a showrunner as well?
I'm basically on the level where I'm in this sort of weird in-between level where if I had a show go, I would be the showrunner. However, I'm not really like in the position to be like a showrunner for hire. I'm on an overall deal. I'm on an overall deal at Universal which I've been on for the past 2 years, until June 1st. And then I start a new overall deal with 20th.
And then what does the overall deal mean? Is like a first look?
No, it's basically like the studio for all intents and purposes sort of owns you. So you're basically paid. I mean, there's a number of different overall deals, but it's sort of like the top tier deal where basically you are paid for what you would make in staffing, what you would make in development, and then like a exclusivity kind of thing. To sort of keep you off the market. So everything that you're doing, everything that you're developing, the shows that you're assignable to are all through that particular studio.
Got it. And then will they assign you to different shows?
They do. Basically the way that it's worked for me in the past is that you usually go on in a consulting producer kind of capacity where you're there 3 days a week, simultaneously developing your own stuff at the same time. And then eventually you go off, depending upon the show, depending upon what the needs are. Normally it is a first year show because those are the shows that tend to need the most help, just because they're, getting going. So.
Now, how did you get this job in the first place? What was your journey?
I was a journalist when I moved here, but I was basically doing like feature pieces on actors and directors, commentary pieces on the industry, writing for publications like Black Book and Nylon, and I just didn't like it. I just sort of didn't find what I was looking for in that. So then I went back to school and I went to USC, and I was in a sort of adjunct program to the screenwriting program, which basically allowed me to take both screenwriting classes and fiction classes. And then back at that time, in order to break into the TV industry, you had to write like a spec of a current TV show. So I just started writing a number of different specs and trying to get anybody who was anyone to read them, which was incredibly difficult. And so I eventually got a manager, and then I won a couple of contests, and that sort of put me over to be read by the studio and network executives, because it was impossible to even get me read at that point. And then finally they read them, they liked them, and then the first thing that I did was set up development for a pilot that was loosely based on my life, being a 25-year-old girl adopting a 12-year-old kid. So
wow.
That was the first thing that I did with CBS Paramount at the time, and then after that sort of gave me a little bit of momentum, and after that I got an agent and began to staff.
So that got you in the game.
Yeah.
And that went to pilot? Did it get picked up?
No, it didn't get picked up. It was just like an IFCOM deal where we went out with the pitch, and then I eventually ended up writing it in-house for them, but we didn't end up selling it to a network.
It's interesting, though. I'd like to see that.
It was a long time ago. I don't think I'd like anyone to see it. But at the time it was great. It took me probably from the time that I graduated USC to the time that I got my first staff job. It was probably about 5 years. And in that time I just kept on writing. I probably wrote 6 or 7 specs and 3 or 4 pilots before I ever got a staff job.
So you used to be pretty determined to get in.
I would imagine.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by the people who get there.
Yeah.
It seems like such a journey.
No, it is. It's amazing. And I feel like especially now, at that time, features were such a big part of the landscape. And I don't feel like that's necessarily true anymore. And not to mention a number of the feature writers, directors, actors are all going into TV now for a number of different reasons. So I feel like now it's nearly impossible. I have a couple of friends that are trying to break in, and there's only a couple of ways to do it.
Even with all the content that needs to happen?
Yeah, still with all the content, and it's really sort of remarkable because now it's very difficult. I feel like this is more true of network staffing, but I feel like the more diverse you are, the better chance that you have in the beginning. Once you get to a certain level, I feel like it's no longer the case. But I feel like if you are a diverse hire, it's a lot easier to get hired right now than if you're a white male.
Now, are they counting women as a diverse hire?
No. But there's a lot of times where there will be a specific need on a show for a woman where it could certainly benefit you, to be female.
Yeah. Do you remember when it used to be that TV was slumming and film people would never work on television?
Exactly.
That is so completely changed.
It certainly has changed, especially with all of the new, with Amazon and Hulu and all of these different outlets. You can really, there's a lot more opportunity. I think that there's also a lot more competition.
For sure. Now, when you are in a room, what is the demographic typically?
It depends. I've been on rooms where it's been me or one other woman and majority white males, and then like a couple other people that are either Black, Asian, whatever it might be. There's rooms that I've been on that have been completely diverse. It really depends on the showrunner. It also depends, I think, on the show. Detroit 187 was a show that I was on, and there were that was set in Detroit, and we filmed in Detroit, and there were significantly more African Americans on that staff than there were on any other staff that I had been on. And I really just think that the more diverse the room is, the better bag you get.
Yeah. Do you think people are thoughtful about that?
I think people are becoming more and more thoughtful about it. I think that even the people that are resisting it the most are now being forced to confront it as a result of what's happening with, the Oscars and a number of different things, various women speaking out in the media about unequal pay. I think that even the people that resist it the most, and it's not necessarily that those people are bad people. Like, some people just want to have the best room that they can possibly have in moving forward. So when you're reading and you're completely overwhelmed with all of these different people submitting all of these different samples to you, you just are like, okay, this is the best sample and this is the best. You don't see the color of their skin unless you're being told that that's the color of their skin prior to, whatever, prior to hiring.
So these more unconscious than, let me just hire a bunch of guys who look just like me and let's get on with it.
I mean, I'm sure. I'm quite certain that there's people out there that do represent that thought process. But I think that there's also a lot of people out there who are. You have a gun to your head. You're trying to staff your show. You're trying not to lose good writers. All of that kind of thing. And I think that it's sort of incumbent upon us to have an awareness about who you're staffing, about who you're putting in your room, whether it's because they have a vagina or it's because they're Black or Latina or whatever it is.
Because it sounds like a great idea, because you should just pick all the best writing and that should be just unbiased. There it is, as long as everyone is represented in that sample of writing.
Exactly.
And you have enough.
Exactly. I think that is the thought process. I think that a number of people certainly want to hire that way. I think that there's a greater awareness now, though, because of what's happening. Certainly not where the awareness should be, but there is a greater awareness about making sure that your room is diverse, with women, with whatever, whomever it might be.
There's certainly a lot of chatter
yes,
happening right now.
Exactly. And I think it's important to have those conversations so that we're evaluating how it is to make sure that everybody's represented fairly,
right,
as well as you having the ability to staff your room with the best writers possible.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of it's sort of a difficult line to sort of straddle sometimes.
Right, because you also have to, I think, help mentor and bring people up and
Yes.
allow people to get the experience to get them where they need to be.
Exactly.
So do you have different levels in a room?
Yes. So it's basically like the way that it works is there is a hierarchy. So the more, it's kind of like when you see at the credits at the end of the TV show and there's all these producers, a lot of the times those are writers. And basically the higher up you get, the more distinguished your title as far as the producing element goes. So you start off and it's like staff writer, story editor, executive story editor, co-producer, producer, supervising producer, co-executive producer, and executive producer. And that's usually the showrunner, or can be a number of other people as well. But yeah, so that's sort of the hierarchy that's working in these rooms. So it's all, you're sort of higher, depending upon what the show is. There's been rooms where I've been in that have had 16 people on staff, and there's other rooms that have only had 5, depending upon the show.
Yeah. Do you have a sense as to whether your pay is equitable to the men in the rooms?
Yes, because I asked the question. I think that I'm torn on this issue because I feel like I've spoken at a couple of USC classes and that's always the question that I get about, like, is it something that is like keeping me up at night? Like, am I being equally paid, paid the same as my male counterparts? And I think that if your focus is entirely that, you're focused on the wrong thing. I think that my pay is equitable with my male counterparts because I've always made it about the work. Mm-hmm. And I feel like whether you're a female or a male or whomever you are, I feel like the thing that gets you ahead in this business is being the one person, the one person who is tireless and will work when everybody else is tired. You know what I mean? Just to be able to, I mean, certainly it helps to have some modicum of talent, but I do feel like I do feel like the people, I do feel like the people that are that refuse to be beaten are the people that tend to succeed, whether it's because you're a man or a woman.
Yeah.
I certainly have an awareness about it, but there are also a number of other factors that sort of come into play, like what you made on your, because you're basically going to make the minimum on your first staff. Sure. And then if your second job, or if I'm, my second job is only, the bump is only going to be like a little bit, because unless you get into a situation where it's a competitive bidding situation and then your quote goes up and then your quote has the ability to go up higher. But if it's not, they're just going to offer you whatever it is,
union minimum.
I mean, or just, or just slightly above that minimum. So I believe that there's a lot of other factors that come into the sort of pay equity scale.
And do you negotiate when you go in?
I'm not personally negotiating, but my agents are. So I certainly have an awareness about what they're negotiating for. And when you get into a position where everybody wants you, that's the situation where your pay really starts to increase.
And you're a mother.
Yes.
How have you managed that while having this job?
God, I don't even know if I am managing it. I feel like you live in a I feel like the best way to describe it is that you're always in a constant state of guilt. If you're with your work, you feel like you're neglecting your children, and if you're with your children, you feel like you're neglecting your work. I find that it has forced me to be a better multitasker. There's a lot of people, for instance, I know that some guys I know who are single who have this entire routine before they start writing where they have to like read the paper and then surf online for an hour to like get them exactly to get themselves into the thing. And I'm literally like, I've got 2 kids watching TV in opposite rooms. I've got 45 seconds to write this scene and that's all I got, So I find that you just get more creative about how to manage your time. And I find that most of the women that I know that are mothers, whether it be in a shared custody situation or a single mother, are pretty fierce about being able to manage that time and to just sort of roll with the punches and realize like sometimes it's just you wake up at 4 because you have 3 hours before the kids get up or whatever it is, in order to to stay in the game and to be competing at a high level.
Do you think men have this conflict?
I think that some of them do. I mean, certainly there's a lot of fathers out there. I don't think it's to the level that women have it. I think that, I certainly can't speak for all men.
I wonder about the guilt piece of it, because I think the time management piece everybody has, but I wonder about the guilt part.
Well, I feel like the gender roles, I feel like gender roles are slowly changing, but they're still, there's still a big throwback to like the 1955 of it where the guy comes home and, I'm barefoot in the kitchen making sure dinner's on the table by 5. And now I'm at a place where I'm like, fuck that. Make sure my dinner's on the table when I come in because I'm fucking hungry after working all day.
And does that require some negotiation?
It does. It required quite a bit of negotiation. And when I met my husband, I was bartending and managing restaurants, so my career had not taken off, and he was already a working actor who had been working for a number of years and had achieved a certain level of success and all of that. So when those stereotypes started to shift, and I started working more and more, it was sort of like for both of us, it was sort of like may the best man win. Like I feel like we work in such a tenuous business that you always have to sort of put the work first. So whoever was working the most or had the best opportunity to be bringing in money, because we had children and that was a large consideration, was the person that got the most support to go do that. And luckily for me, I had a husband who, at the time, he's not my husband anymore, but a husband at the time who was incredibly supportive and just rolled with it and just became the Mr. Mom while simultaneously balancing his career. He has a lot more freedom because he's an actor, and when I would be on staff, it's a different kind of scenario. It's a different time management scenario. I find that it's more difficult getting current boyfriends to understand what it is that I do and the massive time suck that it is in my life.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, and also around income, because if you make writer money, does then that become an issue when you're dating or in a new relationship if he just has a job?
Yes, it's a huge thing. I got dumped because I got dumped for this very reason, where it was just that I can't remember how it was phrased, but it was something to the effect of there's only so much masculine room in this relationship. And I was like,
and money's masculine.
Yeah, and money's masculine, and bringing home or reaching for the tab. I would think that would be a good thing that I always want to pay for myself. But it can certainly be trying, and you're proud of your success, so you want to be able to, on some level, wear, you don't need to be wearing it on your sleeve, but you don't want to be ashamed of it. And yet, if you're dating somebody who makes significantly less than you do, it can become a problem. Emasculating to them, and yes.
I try to get my head around this too, because I had this issue in my marriage of I can't celebrate my success because it's emasculating to you. Like, I don't understand why that is, but it's a real thing.
Yeah, it is a real thing. The only thing that I can say about it is that there's, there must be like a man out there who is not threatened by a woman who is fierce and can bring home her own bacon and doesn't need you for anything other than, the companionship and the other parts of it that are really important, don't get me wrong. But
okay, whoever meets him first will introduce his brother.
Okay, there we go. It's a deal.
He's got to be out there. Have you noticed the business change since you've been in it?
Yes. How? Significantly. First and foremost, what we talked about earlier was that, there weren't as many outlets way back in the day. Features were features were a very big thing, and a lot of people were making their careers off features. So I've found that it's changed as far as that's concerned. I feel like it has improved for the better as far as gender equality and equal pay, because people are voicing what they believe. The people that are coming out and saying that I didn't make the same amount on this movie, or I didn't make the same amount in that kind of thing. I do believe that it's helping. It's not where it should be. I don't think that it's sort of like Rome wasn't built in a day, but in the same respect, I think that we need to have an awareness about it. And there's a lot of, I think more and more people are having the conversations that they need to be having in order to exact the kind of change that we want to see, happen in the world, and in our industry. I'm trying to think of what else. I feel like TV is a world where it's getting more and more difficult to break into, even when there are so many new outlets.
Why do you think that is?
I think more and more people want to do it. I think it's just like a numbers thing. I think more and more people want to do it. A lot of the feature writers are tired of, the lack of, with TV, most of the time, especially in network TV, there's a certain level of instant gratification. You know what I mean? You write something, get shot, you're on air, whereas features can take years and years and years to, get off the ground. And I feel like more people are migrating it. And I also believe that the quality of TV has improved greatly in especially like the past 10 years, which is basically my time in this business. And I think that the better it gets, the more people want to do it.
Have you had a mentor?
I have had. I'm trying to think if there's anybody that pops out that is. There were a lot of people that were very, very helpful in my early career that didn't need to do me a favor, and that did me a favor. A mentor. There's a group of women. I worked on Bates Motel in the second season, and Carrie Aaron is one of the showrunners. Carlton Cuse is also a showrunner. And the other two people on staff were Alex Cunningham, who, and Liz Tigelaar. And I find that if there's anybody that I look up to in this business, it's those Carlton, yes, obviously because he's this, huge presence in TV, and he's very bright and educated. But I found that my experience working with those three women has really changed my career and changed the way I felt about my career, and changed, and helped to change my perception on just like badass women kicking ass. And they're all mothers balancing a number of different things, their own shows, their husbands, what have you. And I believe that there are a lot of really, really great positive role models out there that are sort of inspiring.
Now, is it something they said, something they did, or their example?
I think it's basic. I think it's all of those things. I feel like their willingness to work despite any obstacle, whether it be with your child, your family, whatever, what have you. I believe that it's the way that they handle themselves in this business and navigate some of the things that we've discussed. I feel like they're sort of these, iconic figures in my life. And whenever I'm thinking, oh, well, what should I do in this situation, I know that I sort of have them to go to. So I feel like they were incredibly helpful.
Do you feel like, especially if you're in a room that's predominantly men, have you had to modify your communication style in order to be heard or be effective?
I feel like I did early on in my career. I feel like the stuff that I write is very male and very muscular. I feel like I'm being very good during this interview, but I have a potty mouth. I'm sort of like a dude.
Me too.
So I found that my potty mouth and, the fact that I wasn't afraid to speak up, that I wasn't afraid to say what I was thinking, I think that those things were frowned upon by some people in the beginning of my career, but I find that it's only been helpful in my achieved a certain level of success. So it was very difficult to navigate because you're sort of questioning, like, oh, should I be myself? Should I be, my ex-husband used to always say to me, you go in there and you just give it your all, like give it 100, well, maybe like 70% of who you are. and I believe that early in my career that was very true. I feel like you have to
behave a little bit.
Yeah,
at the beginning.
you behave a little bit and play ball, and you're also not, I feel on some level it's like with anything, have a respect for the hierarchy. There's people that are above you for a reason, and I feel like so you should, a little bit, know your place, box your weight, that kind of thing. It certainly was like a learning lesson as I was coming up. Now I don't see it as an issue. Like people, at a certain point, people know who you are. Right. You know what I mean? They know that I'm going to come in, and they know I'm going to be a potty mouth. They know, they know what to expect on some level.
That's probably what they love.
So, yeah.
Do you consider yourself a success?
Oh God. I've been reading more and more articles about women owning their success. I consider that I've achieved a certain level of success, but I'm nowhere near satisfied about where I want to go.
What have you not yet achieved?
Having my own show on the air, having it be a huge hit, having it be the kind of show that I respect and love, and holding on to a certain level of integrity along the way. There's certain.
What do you mean by that?
It means that there's a lot of projects that you can, when you get to a certain level, I feel like there's a lot of projects that you can attach yourself to, or that you can come along and that they're going to make it on air. Like for example, like 5 years ago, if you were developing a procedural, you wanted to make sure CBS was your home. But at the end of the day, the procedural might not be everything that you really want. Yes, you could get a show on the air. I'm not saying it's this easy, but I'm saying if that were the case. But then you have to do that show every day. So being willing to say no to projects that may seem to deliver an easier payday, and I guess it's about fighting for the projects that might not be the easier payday, but that are something at the end of the day that you believe in and that you can love going to work, because it's such a huge time suck and there's so much to do, and especially when you're running your own show and you're dealing with post, you're dealing with casting, and you're dealing with making sure that you're in the writer's room a certain number of hours a day. I feel like it just comes easier when you love it. So, not to sell out to the things that you don't love.
So you have to live with it.
Yeah.
Are you a badass?
Oh, God. I think that other people should answer that question.
I can say you are a badass, and I've known you for 10 minutes.
Thank you. That's very nice.
How do you hear that word?
I feel like it's just like how I define it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like it's somebody that's just fierce, that is very much who they are, who is not easily intimidated by the obstacles around her or him. Yeah. I mean, I guess that would be it.
What do you think is the next step as far as gender equality in this business?
I believe that, sorry for the really, really long pause, but it's a very sort of broad,
it was dramatic.
Broad question. I believe that the sort of road to gender equality is paved with awareness, and it's making sure that all of the people that are in a position of power are aware of what needs to be done in order to exact change. So I believe that being willing to read diverse writers, being willing to, maybe if you are bucking the idea that a woman's in your room because it's a really dude show. It's a very dude show, or it's very masculine. Like try to find the women that are out there that do write badass shit, because we're out there, we exist. I believe that it takes a little bit. I believe the challenge is that it takes an amount of time in a business that doesn't have a lot of time. So when you, like I was saying, when you do have a gun to your head and you're just trying to staff your show, it's about taking those extra moments to make sure that you have read all the women out there who may have a badass sample, who may be those kinds of things, and making sure that all of the parties that have power have that awareness, and continuing to have those discussions and realize that, it's like, we can ask dudes out now. We can pay our own way. It's not, it's not.
Although it pisses them off.
It does piss them off. Although you get dumped for it. But I think that the more conversations we have, the bigger awareness there is, and the better to exact change, I guess.
And what's in it for them?
Finding somebody that could potentially be, the badass thing that you're discovering. I feel like that's a really, really tough question.
I think that's the piece we have to find.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm in agreement. I mean, is it something that you? I mean, is it something that you do? Do you shame them into it? Do you? I mean, what are the?
That may not be sustainable.
No, I mean, that's what I'm saying, though.
Yeah.
Do you? I mean, if you hang a lantern on a white showrunner who predominantly hires all of his white Harvard buddies, you know what I mean? Is it about bringing sort of raising a mirror to that? I'm not sure how you do it. I mean, I know how you do it from the female side, and I feel like, but finding that component is sort of more difficult to find.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I wish I had more to say about that. I'm not sure exactly how to do that. I feel like if you're a woman, and I feel like if you're a woman, it's just about working as hard as you can and writing the stuff that you want to write and trying to get into any kind of room. But if you're up against a wall where a male won't read your stuff, you're stuck. You're up shit's creek. But
do you think women have to be better to get in?
Yes and no. I think that sometimes, yeah, that might be the case. If you're reading a male and a woman and you're not sure who to hire, I think in that situation, sometimes the woman has to be better. I also think there's a lot of cases where, like right now, I know being a white male and trying to break into this industry is about as fucked a demographic as you could possibly be. I mean,
because we have plenty of those.
Exactly. And so right now, like all of the people that are getting hired that are trying to break in are the people that showrunners are going to be compelled to look at first are diversity hires, because they're free for the show in a lot of cases because the studio pays for them. But and there's a lot of times where it does help to be a woman. It does help that you are that one woman that they choose to go in that all male writers room to write this action show.
And then do you think there's any backlash to be the one woman in the room that was a forced hire?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just got to show up and be fucking awesome. But I feel like that's true of anybody that shows up on staff in any room. You know what I mean? Yeah. You go in, you have to prove it. You have to prove it. You have to, yes, they hire you based on an hour conversation that they had in one piece of material that they've read of yours. And then it's, how are you getting along with everybody in the room? How, do you deliver when you've got 2 hours to write a, 60-page script? Not that, but 2 days.
That seems hard.
So there's a number of different factors that sort of play in once you're in the door. I think it becomes less once you're in the door, I believe, unless you're playing into a weakness they perceived you had to begin with, I believe it's just, show up and kick some ass.
Just do it.
And just prove to them that they got this one wrong.
Now, about your process, because you're talking about, because of your schedule in your life, you may have this allotted amount of time to just do it. Do you find that you can just sit and do it because you don't have time to wait around for your muse to show up?
You just have to do it. I mean, I don't have the same, I'm not saying there's people that have schedules that are far busier than mine, and there's people that don't. And I find that, in my particular case, if you have 10 minutes, you use the 10 minutes the best that you know how, and you find a way to make it happen and to still be working just as hard as everyone else while being sort of handicapped by, not that having children is a handicap, but like being handicapped by the time suck that is devoted to your children.
So are you thinking about it all the time? Like, are you composing in the shower? And
absolutely. I mean, in bed, like I can't go to bed like a normal human being. Like I don't just turn off. It's not one of those jobs where you get home from work and you're like, oh, that was awesome. All the money was counted at the bank. Everything went well today.
Maybe just
you
watch
come
TV
home
and have a beer.
No, I mean, I have pads all over my house. I'll be like in the middle of dinner and I'll have to write down a thought. It's one of those things where you have to, I don't know, in my particular case, I feel like you just have to force yourself to be present in every moment that you're in. So if you are with your children and you're just for that 1 minute, you have to be the best mother that you can be. And if you're sitting down in front of a computer, then you have to be the best thing. The hard part is the pull and tug of doing the two at the same time. And, oftentimes there's no, you have a script deadline and your kid gets sick. You're fucked, but you find a way to do it. You know what I mean? While you're holding her hair, you're simultaneously jotting down notes on a notepad and getting it done.
How do you stay in the present moment?
I feel like it's just about reminding yourself to do it. Like, I'm staying in just this moment and not thinking of the, I feel like it's like a Sisyphusian effort. You can't see the mountain. You just have to see the step in front of you. And in the step in front of you, you're going to be whatever it is you're going to be, the best that you can be in that, as cheesy as that sounds, in just that one moment. And then if you string a number of those moments together, maybe you have an hour where you are present with your children or present at work or, so.
Do you ever have time where you get a vacation or you get sincere time off or you do get to unwind?
Yeah, I mean, it happens. It's like, like right now, I didn't have a pilot that was picked up to get shot, and I'm sort of in a holding pattern between two studios. So I'm going to spec something in the meantime, or you think about what you're going to do and you're reading, so you do have time to take a vacation. And I realized, like, the moment that my pilot didn't get picked up, I had to book a vacation, and that vacation is going to be significantly more expensive because I have to do it right away because I realize that I may not have another vacation with my children for a very long time. So you kind of are forced to do that. I find that, and then there are some periods of time a year where you're just screwed all the way through. I mean, I feel like for me in particular, being on an overall, when you're on staff and developing at the same time, you have very, very limited free time. Like there's periods of time, the majority of the year, you're not seeing your friends as much. You're not being able to connect. But when you do, you just are, sort of all about that.
Yeah. How do you manage the rest of your life? Like, do you have a nanny? Do you have a housekeeper? Carpool, school stuff? How do you do it?
I do. I have somebody that helps me with my kids. My ex-husband and I try not to outsource. We try to be present for the times that we have. But when I'm on a show and I don't get home until 6:30 and they need to be picked up earlier, then I'll hire somebody for that period of time. Which also makes it very challenging. I have a housekeeper, but she comes like twice a month. So, it's not like, she's cleaning up after me every day. Like, I'm the housekeeper.
Right. Are you making it to the grocery store?
I'm the cook. I'm the nanny. sometimes I send my assistant. I have an assistant under my overall to the grocery store, which is not something I'm embarrassed about. But sometimes you just don't have time for anything. So
Sometimes you have to.
So yeah, I mean, I do have help. That help is limited. I think that if I were in a position where I were running a show, that help would increase greatly, only because it would become a necessity.
Yeah.
When it's not a necessity, I try to do as much as I can. I try to, when I'm not working, to make sure we're all sitting down to a family dinner together, to make sure, all of those kinds of things. Those things don't get missed. If I'm able to, I try to take them to birthday parties and school events and lucky for me, I have my baby daddy is awesome and is willing to help out no matter what. There's a lot of times where he's working on, he goes away for a movie for 3 weeks and I take the kids all the time. And there's times where, where I was, in December, I was writing 2 pilots and up against a deadline. And there were a lot of weekends where he took the kids for half the time that were my weekends, just simply because I was just buried.
Yeah.
So, I'm lucky. There's a lot of women that aren't as lucky as I am.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
To manage and take care of.
But it's kind of, also fun. And I find that, I'm the type of person that does so much better when I'm busy than when I'm bored. When I'm bored, I just get into nothing but trouble. So I need to, I'm glad that I have a job that isn't in children and all of these things that are a huge time suck. Otherwise I would be just a waste of a person.
Well, then thank you so much for talking to me.
No, it's my pleasure. It's my
great.
pleasure. It was fun to be a part.
You've been listening to The Other 50%. I'm Julie Harris-Walker. I want to thank Nikki Toscano for sharing her story with us. And special thanks to Jonathan Lucas for editing, Jay Rowe, Danny Rosner, and Allison McQuaid for the music. Please find us on iTunes and subscribe and leave a review, and on our website, theother50%.com, all spelled out, for added features and bios of our guests. Thanks for listening. See you next time.
Can you comprehend? I am who I am.